Welcome to the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. And I'm your host, David Riddle. If you're watching, you can see on the screen, there's a whole bunch of people here. We're going to have a pretty interesting discussion. We're going to compare the benefits and not quite a benefit of bullseye shooting as well as practical shooting and how they compare. My guest on the screen, as you can see, is Mr. Matt Gundlach, retired Marine, was on the Marine shooting team and actually guided them away from bullseye shooting into the practical shooting realm. So he's probably going to catch most of the hate here. In the upper right, as you're looking, you have the GOAT of NRA bullseye, Gunny, Brian Zins. And the bottom right, you have Olympic shooter himself, former Marine, current Army, or was Army. I'm not quite sure exactly there. I'm sure I'll know here in just a moment. Mr. Keith Sanderson. And at the bottom left of the screen, you have Zane Jones, who dabbles in a little bit of everything. So we brought him in to get his perspective of both sides here. So with that, Matt, if you would go ahead and start with a quick intro.
Well, one, thanks for having me on again. It's been a while. But no, I'm Matt Gundlach. Matt Gundlach, like Dave said, retired gunny. I was on the Marine Corps shooting team prior to that. Just tried to do as much time in the fleet infantry as I could. Tried getting as many deployments as I could. Got into practical shooting because I saw a benefit to where I can utilize that type of training and bring it back to my platoon prior to deploying, and use it to train them even when we're on deployment.
Okay. Brian.
Like I said, 12-time national pistol champion, retired, living the dream down here in North Carolina. And no hate for getting away from bullseye shooting and getting into the action thing. It got me a trophy named after me, so I'm okay with it.
I saw that. I was there at the NCR award ceremony last week or the week before, and yeah, that was, I think, the first time that they handed out that trophy.
It was actually last year. Nelson and I got to come down and hand out our individual trophies to the winning team, so it was really cool.
Congratulations on getting that trophy made.
Thanks. And of course, the rifle trophy's bigger.
Who cares? It's all about pistol.
Short rifles, you know.
Keith?
Hey, you're not coming in.
You're muted.
Fucking boot.
No. Oh, I'm not. Okay, we're going to go to Zane while he works on that. All right, Zane, go ahead.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Zane Jones. I am the most casual shooter on this casual shooting podcast. I was a 10-year member of the Marine Corps Reserve Shooting Team, shooting on the Bullseye Pistol Team on the pistol side. I also run the Bullseye channel on YouTube, where we talk about bullseye shooting and precision shooting and all fun things like that. It's a nice little corner of YouTube. I'm currently still serving in the reserves.
So in the reserves, you dabble in it, and then on your off time, you probably do more shooting in your off time than you do in your on time.
I do almost no shooting in my reserve capacity, and I mainly just shoot for myself now.
Okay.
So no longer on the reserve shooting team. As it is.
So Brian, first off, I got to ask, what is this trophy that we're talking about?
It is the National Capital Region, whatever the Marine Corps combat match they run now. One for the pistol team and one for the rifle team.
Yeah,
the pistol trophy. Nelson Ocasio got the rifle.
Yeah, so each region in the Marine Corps has trophies named after them. So whoever's high pistol, high rifle, it's named after a historical member of the shooting team. Sorry, you're a piece of history now, Brian.
Hey, I'm just glad I was alive to get it and see it.
Very true. No, it was cool seeing it handed out. So each region at the Marine Corps marksmanship competitions, whether it's Okinawa, Camp Pendleton, Camp Lejeune, they have a trophy named after a historical figure of the team. And so here in the National Capital Region, it's Ocasio and Zins.
Here's an interesting fact. I was on the rifle team with Ocasio in 90.
God, you're old.
I am old. I told you I'm the oldest guy here by far.
I was 7 years old. How does that make you feel?
That was my
you better
first summer
respect your
on the
elders. Keith, are you back?
I don't know. Am I?
You
Yes.
are.
Holy shit.
There
I
he
have
is.
a lot of echo, so I'm sure I'm back.
Oh no. Nobody else is getting echo in their ear, right?
Nope.
I got a little bit on my end, but it's not bothering me. I don't hear any echo from Keith.
Okay. Weird. I don't know what's going on with that. Well, Keith, if you're able to think as you hear yourself talk, give us a quick intro.
Yeah, so I have been retired for almost 8 years. It'll be 8 years next week. I did 8 years in the Marine Corps and then 16 in the Army.
So you went in and you got out at 16.
I went in February
So 92?
93.
Okay.
February 93.
Okay. And that was when Brian was winning probably his first national championship.
No, I was there for that.
That was early.
I was there for that. Yeah. Yeah,
He
96.
was
That was my first summer.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember him throwing up in his boots in West Virginia the first time he broke 2670s.
That was
It was
not
pretty
all
awesome.
that happened that night.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that though.
So Keith, you were at Quantico in 93?
No.
95.
I was in boot camp in 93 and then in school and then 29 Palms.
I got you. Okay. In 95, you're saying, Brian. Okay, I got you now.
Was it 95?
Yeah. 96.
96.
96.
Okay. So when I made the switch from, well, when I found practical shooting, like I was still shooting high power rifle up until what was it, like 2017, 2018. That's when I found practical shooting on the pistol side. Now, before I get into any further into that, Matt, I would like for you to explain what it was that why did you move the Marine Corps team to practical shooting versus bullseye?
All right. So how do I put this? So in 2013, I was watching, I'll kind of give it a start of how I got into practical shooting and the benefits I saw from that and why I decided to move the team. But it kind of all came down to, in 2013, I was watching the Outdoor Channel and saw, Sergeant James Gill shooting 3-gun on 3-Gun Nation. And, that kind of piqued my interest. I got into it myself. I met the team in 2016 at the FNH 3-Gun Championship with Nate Stocking, who was in charge of the action shooting team at the time. And he asked me then, hey, do you want to come over to the team? And I responded, no. I was like, I'm leaving on another deployment in 5 months. I just came back from a deployment like 2 weeks prior. And, I went to, Bahrain and did stuff around there. And while I was over there, he hit me up again. Hey, you want to come over to the team? I was just like, sure. Let me talk to my wife about it. Obviously, I went to the team. What I saw from it is we could take a lot of the lessons learned from practical shooting and utilize the techniques within practical shooting and apply them to combat situations and increase the lethality. Like in terms of bullseye, I don't see anything wrong with it because it teaches you the fundamentals. Everybody needs to learn the fundamentals, but whenever it comes to enhancing a person's ability and progressing them through, I saw the need that we need to continue pivoting and push toward practical shooting to increase the lethality of Marines across the entire Marine Corps. That's kind of a roundabout way of why I decided to make that switch.
How much pushback was there when you initially started?
I mean, quite honestly, we started it as, we still had a bullseye pistol team. We still had a bullseye rifle team. We had a 3-gun team. And all I did was add an Action Pistol Team. So it started out as that, but money became tight, and so we had to look at where are the benefits of practical shooting versus bullseye. How much money are we going to save? What are we going to be able to do, and how are we going to be able to affect the fleet? And we saw direct correlation of guys who just shot bullseye and guys who just shot action, and their ability to teach and understand the gun and go out and teach Marines in the fleet. So we saw who was capable of doing what, and we were like, the guys on the action team are much more capable of teaching this stuff than just teaching bullseye.
Yeah.
You think that's just because of the dynamic movement?
I think that's a large part of it. Understanding the gun, understanding how to manipulate the gun, applying the fundamentals in a much quicker manner.
Okay. Someone was about to say something.
Yeah, I just also want to point out like an important point of context over the last 5 years within the Marine Corps is that the changes that have happened to Marine Corps marksmanship didn't happen within a vacuum.
No.
A lot of sacred cows have sort of been divested. General Berger brought out Force Design 2030, which was a reorganization, a divestment of the Marine Corps, organizationally, the equipment that we use, the way that we focus on things. And what that created, and this is my observation, I only represent my own opinion, is it created a lot of maneuver space for commanders, 06, general officers to make changes that they felt that were necessary. It got to a point where, and I think it probably still is to a certain extent, that traditional, just saying, we've always done this, this is the way we've always done it, was almost seen and taken with like hostility.
Yes.
The word lethality, which I think
it's thrown around a little too much. It's a catchphrase. It is.
It reminds me of when in sort of the GWAT era, when they started putting the word combat in front of everything.
Or complacency kills.
Yeah. But all that saying there, the Marine Corps has very specific definitions of, what the Marine Corps shooting team's mission is. And it is tied very much into the effectiveness of the frontline forces, which is not the case in all of the other services. So the changes that have been happening, I didn't know they were inspired by the Outdoor Channel. That's an important piece of Marine Corps history. Did not certainly happen in a vacuum. I mean, we're sitting here in November of 2025, having divested tanks, we've reorganized cannon artillery and scout sniper platoons.
Hey, at least you didn't follow up. You didn't follow Top Shot and start doing some crazy crap that they were doing.
The whole Marine Corps would have been different if you changed the channel, man.
So one of the things I'd like to say too is we listened to what the Marines wanted. A lot of the times it's like commanders are like, they thought, when you say one of the reasons why the name got changed to Marine Corps marksmanship competitions rather than division matches is quite honestly because there was a stigma behind the division match name, and nothing against what our predecessors did, but the gunner community, the commanders, they heard division matches and they're like, why am I just going to send my Marines to go shoot this competition and do the same thing over and over again? But whenever people started realizing, oh no, this is a completely different kind of competition, it started taking hold and we started getting more participation. And that kind of allowed a lot of things to happen to where the team created mobile training teams. So where people can request a team to go down to their unit. We got a lot of requests from 2nd Recon Battalion and some infantry battalions and PMO units to go down there and train them, all because of the type of shooting that we were doing, because they saw the benefits of that type of shooting and how they can manipulate the gun. And I mean, we taught them in a discovery learning type of format.
Well, and that's great. And I like that they went to more of a combat style shooting because it's, we're no longer a long time peace force, whatever. I hate that they got away from the bullseye competitions in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at the history of it, HRP down there in Quantico was started by teams. teams.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was bullseye guys, both rifle and pistol, that went over there and actually kicked that off. The small arms weapons instructors course. Everything back then came from teams, because back in the day, that's all it really was.
Mm-hmm.
And we did mobile training teams, and we went out and we did things other than bullseye. And the only problem I saw with it is they got a little too far away from the fundamentals, I think. They're
Yeah.
shooting great. I watched them. I was down there for the competition last year, and I
Mhm.
watched those guys over there on range 305 and on the pistol range, and it was impressive. I actually got to shoot with one of the teams that only had 3 members, and I'm like, all right, don't show your ass out here. And they said, hey, there's a 50-yard shot, one-handed. That's your stage. And I did good. I took fair. The hard part for me was running from the box up to the freaking shooting position. The shooting part was easy. My daughter was there, and she even laughed. She goes, "The only thing you struggled with was going from here to there." But I still wish that the Marine Corps would have stuck with having a bullseye team. No offense, Keith, but to go stomp the armies into the dirt at nationals every year for the Gold Cup, because now we don't have that representation.
Yeah, and one of the things I commonly told people is, look, I would love for the team to be able to compete in every discipline, but the money's just not there. So we have to look at where are we
Yeah.
going to get our best bang for our buck, and what's going to keep the lights on. What do people want? How do we increase, the capabilities of the Marines and the fleet? And I wish we had the type of money and ability to do it all. Like people often associate, oh, Matt Gundlach, he hates bullseye. I don't hate bullseye. I tell people, compete in whatever sport and discipline that makes you happy. But in terms of the Marine Corps, I have to look at what's going to make the best Marines capable.
And it's interesting too, because, right, if we're talking, and we probably need to frame this conversation, like there have been changes to the way that we are training Marines and the way that they are qualifying, and that's one conversation. And then there are sort of like then there's the shooting teams, and then somewhere in between there's the Marine Corps marksmanship competitions, which is kind of like a blending point for that. And I'm curious, Brian, like I've been to Perry the last couple of years, and it kind of hurts, right, not to see Marines there. I personally lament it, but I always wonder how you feel about it. I guess, and I'd be curious Keith, how you feel about it as well, being wildly successable, historical. We've established bullseye shooters.
It again, it's bad to not see Marines at the NRA National Championships. I understand the Marine Corps' mission and what Matt's saying, and even I got to do a lot of talking with Nick Capco before he left teams, and I understand that. I go back, and Keith will probably agree with me on this. A lot of the Marine Corps' shooting problems came from the gunner community. The gunner community was devastating to teams. It really was.
There's no range officer anymore.
Right. They got rid of the range officers, and we had the gunners, and the gunners.
When all of us had first come in, there was the gunners, which were like, I remember Gunner Galinas, a Vietnam vet. They were all hardcore dudes. And then they got rid of the range officer program. They quadrupled the size of the gunner community. So for the first time in my life, I saw fat gunners. And then they were walking around. I was the chief marksmanship instructor at K-Bay in Hawaii at the time, so I got to see this real time. We had these gunners that thought they were cut from the old cloth, and they weren't. And there was a lot of resentment towards the shooting teams, the division matches, and that style of shooting. And in all honesty, I don't think teams did themselves any real favors. There was some that acted like prima donnas and that weren't listened, that didn't invest the time to listen to or to explore other types of shooting. And ultimately that killed the Marine Corps shooting team. as far as, bullseye
I tried
and
to
service
get
rifle.
the teams to go and start shooting NRA action a long time ago and get into other stuff. And it was our staff NCOACs and the warrant officers that were running the program. They're like, oh no, we're marksmanship, we're fundamental marksmanship guys. I'm like, but we can branch out, because you look at some of the action guys now that are doing really well. A lot of them came from the bullseye community.
Mm-hmm.
They mastered those fundamentals and they were able to make those transitions to moving and shooting faster. The sight alignment and trigger control, they got that shit down.
Well,
But the Marine Corps team, when I was there, they just didn't want to dabble in anything else. And now that's all it is.
And that's where I see the main benefit, or the biggest benefit of bullseye shooting, is that initial marksmanship training. Learn the fundamentals, understand, press the trigger slow. It may not be the best for combat use, but to understand the fundamentals and be able to hit exactly what you're aiming at every single time, I don't think there's anything better than that. Like I've been to schools now, or I've been to a class with practical shooting, and people who've never done any type of bullseye don't have to have the word group shooting explained to them and what that means. And it's like, it's hard really to talk to someone about marksmanship when they don't have those basic fundamentals. I almost feel like practical shooting is another step in marksmanship training, but you have the fundamentals and then you have other stuff. Go ahead, Matt.
Just real quick.
Oh, Keith,
nowhere in the fundamentals of marksmanship is pulling the trigger slowly. As somebody who shoots a different target every half of a second, for a living, I can.
And I don't pull the trigger slow. I'm very aggressive on my trigger, even
right,
bullseye.
Yeah. So there's a lot of misnomers about what bullseye is, and it's not pulling the trigger slowly. And I don't want to speak for anyone else here, but at least I regularly miss where I'm aiming. I don't I don't hit every single target all the time. I don't know anybody who does.
Well, and I think that's where practical shooting really comes into play, where on the bullseye side, you have extreme fundamentals. Let's call it as it is. It's extreme fundamentals of marksmanship, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'll be the first one to say, whenever I was on the bullseye pistol team, I'll be the first one to admit I sucked, and Keith will even tell you that I sucked. I can't shoot it. It's just not in my genetics and my or DNA to do that. But what it did help me with is improve my fundamentals to where whenever I shot practical shooting, it became subconscious, second nature, to where I can now move, shoot, and do everything in a much more deliberate and expedient manner. And so now whenever I go to a match, I don't even really have to warm up. It's just I go and I do my thing. So yes, I will agree. There are benefits, but I also do think at some point you do have to push past.
Yeah, and an analogy that has worked well for me in comparing bullseye and we'll just say practical shooting, since that's the term that we're using, is, to me, bullseye shooting is kind of like deadlifting, bench pressing, and squatting. It is boring. Not a lot of people want to do it, and it's not fun to watch.
Say it ain't so. That's my favorite. I love doing all three of those.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, you started, right? And then practical shooting is CrossFit. It is multifaceted. It's dynamic, and they both have their benefits. And another, not to belabor metaphor, but the way that I see it is, if you had training jars when it comes to marksmanship, and you have weapons handling, accuracy, movement, transitions, bullseye very clearly puts a lot of that, most of your sand, and if sand in this case are like training time and training dollars, in the accuracy jar. Focusing and the movement of training to some of the to practical shooting takes some of that sand out of accuracy and spreads it into some of the other jars. The Marine Corps, and I think Matt has kind of discussed this, the Marine Corps doesn't have an unlimited amount of training time or training dollars. and they have a service requirement to man train and equip their Marines to fulfill requirements in the Joint Force. And so it seems to be a difficult decision where I think we'll find ourselves in the next 20 years. And to echo a little bit of something that Brian said earlier is we will, as we always do, reevaluate our focus, and we will probably need to stress accuracy a little bit more. You know, you said you're at Quantico this weekend. You said that I think maybe the fundamentals need to be coached or preached. I think that in heaven forbid the next conflict, which could come in 20 years, could come in 2 weeks, we potentially will have to have another CBA, another evaluation, and always trying to improve.
Well, like in terms of like, you know, okay, we don't have a bullseye rifle team anymore, but what we do have is we have a PRS team, you know, and in PRS, I would say that's another form of extreme accuracy. You're shooting unknown distance. I mean, you're getting your distance, but you're having to apply and utilize the equipment that is in front of you and engage targets and hit them, and you have a time requirement to do that. Like, so yeah, we don't have the extreme fundamentals of bullseye there, but we do have extreme fundamentals on varying distance of targets.
Okay.
Yeah, and Keith, I guess I'm arguing in support of broader training, right?
And Keith, to your point earlier, yeah, I stopped my thought mid-train, but my point was just that, you know, learn to pull the trigger slowly so you don't disturb the sights, and then slowly increase until you can, as you said. Exactly. There we go. Yeah.
And one thing I will say, because I think words,
I don't think about it as I've grown to hate the phrase fundamentals of marksmanship, because it's used as some religious, you know, semi-religious connotations that are, you know, I remember I used to argue with guys about I just got a thing up on my screen about whether a loop sling was part of the fundamentals of rifle marksmanship, or whether, you know, this or that was when I was working in Hawaii. And the answer is no. Loop sling has nothing to do with marksmanship. It is a tool. So I don't look at the things like as the fundamentals of marksmanship. I look at it like a pie, and you have bullseye is a piece of the pie. Service rifle is another. Well, in the context of pistol, at least, you have bullseye is a piece of the pie. USPSA is another piece of the pie. There's some overlap, of course, right? In this Venn diagram of shooting, what I found, and I hate it because I don't want to say this is the way to do it because this is the way that I learned it, but it seems to me that bullseye is unique amongst the shooting sports in that it's the center. It's the only one where I've seen people successfully go from bullseye and make transitions to all the other types of shooting sports and do it very effectively.
Yeah, you don't see you do not see the reverse.
Come over and shoot bullseye really effectively.
Look how long it took Robbie Latham to come over and get his President's 100.
Yeah, he got it 100.
Yeah, and one at 100 exactly.
Yeah.
Well, he finally got it.
He did, and he's there most years. I like him a lot. He's a good dude, and he was very innovative. The godfather of USPSA, I would say.
And a guy that grew up, he trained. He shot a lot of bullseye because that was the only thing around until USPSA came up.
Right.
You know, and talking to him several times, he would even say he would go back, shoot a bullseye match, go train some little bit of bullseye just to help tighten up groups a little bit here and there. And a lot of them do that. And what Keith was saying too, as far as the loop sling goes, when I teach a bullseye class, I teach two fundamentals, only two: aiming and trigger. That's it. Stance, position, grip, all that other stuff is a luxury. You have to master grip, obviously, for bullseye, but to a well-aimed shot, watch Top Shot. We stood on one foot, held the pistol upside down, pulled the trigger with our pinky. You can still make well-aimed shots, but to do it consistently, you have to master that. You have to have everything else. But as far as fundamentals go, it's aiming and trigger. Guys in combat don't get good shooting positions. They really don't. You're hiding, you're ducking, you're running, you're heavy breathing, everything. Breath control's out the window.
You get what you get.
You get what you get.
And
Exactly.
and that's where, like, so recently I've been competing in gauntlet matches down in North Carolina. And those are physically demanding matches, and I kind of look at it as if I'm conducting an attack. I have to move some type of equipment, get my heart rate spiking. Once I'm done with moving that equipment, then I have to go into shooting. So I'm shooting while under duress, and then whenever I'm done shooting, I have to move it back. So, like, I think that perfectly correlates with a lot of the stuff that we're trying to get across. I'm wearing a flak jacket, I'm wearing a sling, I'm engaging while under duress. I'm having to, like, it turns into subconscious shooting. And
And you do this for fun?
yes.
Oh, okay. You're
Yeah,
sick.
no, I love that
I
shit.
do too. Yeah, I like that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier than real shooting, which would be like bullseye and the Olympics. My heart rate's a lot higher at the Olympics than it is in anything else.
Well, you're under a lot of pressure there, and that's why your heart rate's spiking a lot higher. Like with me, I'm trying to keep my heart rate at a specific pace and engage. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm not even thinking about shooting. I'm just doing it.
I can't think about my heart rate. I'm too busy trying to align my sights. That's hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, like, there's the differences between bullseye and practical shooting. You're having to think extremely about what you're doing, whereas, like, in my style of shooting, I don't have time to think about it. I can only do it. And in combat, you don't have time to think about the perfect shots. You have to engage.
And that makes sense, but let me caveat that with this. When
Hmm.
I'm shooting bullseye, I don't think about shit. Its finger reacts to what the eye sees. The gun comes up, I see a dot, I see iron sights. That finger starts moving according to what happened. I'm not consciously out there thinking about stuff. It's subconscious. It's
So,
it's
Brian,
it's
when you,
kind of zen-like or whatever, I don't analogy you want to use. But I tell people in my classes, I'm not smart enough to shoot bad because I don't think about it. I don't overanalyze anything. I know what the sights need to look like, and I know how to pull the trigger without screwing that up. And that's the only thing going through my head is there's sights, there's dot in the middle of the black, fingers moving, don't fuck it up.
you know, Keith, your volume for whatever reason you're coming in a little on the low side. We have to be real quiet to hear you. But
Oh, I'm sorry.
this is for both of you. When you are shooting bullseye and you're doing that, is there any conscious thought at all like break the trigger now, break the shot now?
I'll let Brian
Go
answer
ahead, Keith.
first. Mine's gonna be different.
Mm.
I
No, he
often
said you
say,
go
if you
first,
could hear
Brian.
what's going through my head
Okay.
during like a 4-second series, the average person would probably have a seizure. My head is a bag of monkeys on crack when I'm shooting. I really, really wish I had the mental discipline or the whatever the skill it is to get to that zen like place. But I don't ever get there. I deal with the chaos. That's just my ADD nature.
Brian.
I am not a surprise shot kind of guy. I pick my shots. I make my gun go bang. I'm not consciously saying there it is, pull the trigger, obviously. It's again, finger reacts to what the eye sees. It's not a conscious thought. It's just there it is, and I know how to pull the trigger without disturbing the sight or the dot, and it goes. But I
And
do make it go. I don't just keep squeezing and hope that when it breaks that it's in the middle. I call those shots, I make those shots, I make that gun go bang. But it's not a conscious thing.
I'm the
I
polar
don't have the
opposite
barrel of
there,
monkeys
which
though.
just goes to show that there's different ways to skin the cat. I got it
Yeah.
from Jason Meidinger. Used to say that it was his trigger and sight alignment was a race. Trigger was going no matter what. He was doing the best he could to get his sights aligned before the gun went off, and that's how I approach all types of shooting. Whether I'm shooting USPSA, IDPA, some sniper match or something on one of the pistol stages or rifle stages, whether I'm shooting in combat or whatever else, the situation or stage of fire determines how fast this guy's moving, and I just do the best I can to get stuff lined up before it goes off. And that
And
works well
similar to
for me
that,
because
I've
I
said the
can.
same thing in classes where I would draw a tripod, one sight picture, one sight alignment, one's trigger control. Those are your three legs. And they're trying to all get to the same point as your sights are aligned, as they're coming into the middle of your target. But you got to have that trigger moving just right along with that. So it's a three-legged stool there, and you're trying to get all that at one time to be perfect.
And I'll say
So as close to
this.
perfect as possible.
Yeah, I'll say this. In the Marine Corps, I th- I think we can all agree here. The Marine Corps has a problem with teaching marksmanship. Like the CMC CMT course, they're getting guys who are not really qualified to teach marksmanship, teaching marksmanship. The POI kind of sucks. And it's no fault of those coaches or trainers. It's just they don't have the experience behind the gun. They are, it's like it's a funnel of information, and they learn how to do things one way. Whereas like I know how to do things, and I know how to look at things. Brian, you know how to look at things, and you can look at somebody doing something wrong and show them another way. And Keith and Zane, you two are the same. You can look at somebody, analyze what they're doing, and figure out what's going to be the best method of teaching them. Whereas a lot of these young guys that are coaches and trainers, they don't have that ability because they've only been taught one way, and when they're taught, they're saying this is the only way that you're supposed to do it. This is the only way you're allowed to teach it, and that's a problem.
Well, I agree with you compared to like the platonic, like ideal way of teaching, maybe, but you've never taught Army guys. You don't know how the Army teaches. The Marine Corps is still, as all the problems that most of us are aware of that may exist or that do exist, they are head and shoulders above any other comparable sized branch in the entire world on marksmanship. Still, that doesn't mean they can't get better. There's a lot of room for improvement, but right now they are. They might be going back a little bit, but
And I've been removed for 3 years, so I don't know what they're doing or how good it is now.
well, now that service rifle and bullseye pistol have gone away, it's probably going downhill.
I don't think so.
I think the
Yeah,
ability to teach is going downhill because if you watch guys shoot long range rifle or bullseye pistol, those coaches will learn more about position, grip, everything that they're doing, their breath control when when they can use it. But I think just combat stuff, it's happening so fast. They don't have the luxury to actually see, analyze what they're doing wrong. They're going, oh, well, with the pistol, you're shooting low and left. You're jerking the shit out of the trigger. It's the same stuff the NRA always taught.
Well, I think
But
what they could do
in
better is
bullseye, if you can watch guys, you can actually watch them. I can call shots better than most bullseye shooters just watching their gun. I'll have them take a shot in slow fire. I'll watch their pistol, and I'll say that's going to be to the right. They'll scope it, and sure enough, it's off to the right. And they're like, "How do you know?" I'm like, "I'm watching your hand. I'm watching the trigger. I'm watching what your sights do when it breaks. I can analyze all that."
and you can do the same in action shooting. Yes, it's not as methodical, but you could watch somebody and what they're doing. I mean, action shooting isn't just moving. Like whenever you're training somebody, whenever you're coaching them, it's static on the line,
Right.
and you're doing the same thing. But what I think the problem is whenever it comes to like a lot of these coaches and trainers, they're not getting the reps behind the gun to understand how they do stuff and see how others do stuff. That's kind of the point I'm trying to make. They don't get the actual reps like where guys like us, we've shot hundreds and thousands of rounds a day to understand how our mechanics work.
Right.
that said, I've always been pretty impressed with the quality of instruction in the CMC, but I do think that if there's a culprit, it's the PLI. Like I've had the privilege of being involved in a number of CMC iterations on the reserve side, and it's always struck me as a range facilitation certification. You're teaching people how to run the range for their units, not necessarily demonstrate and master the fundamentals,
Yes.
which are both important. But to the extent scrutiny is given to those units when they select the individuals who attend those courses, like it's important to send someone who is a little further along on their mastery of shooting when you kind of source them for those units. But all commanders have competing interests, and it's not the easiest thing to always work out. You can't always send the best person.
Does the Marine Corps in this combat marksmanship program stuff, do they have a coach's course or anything, a certification so that these guys can teach it better, or is it just
So right now it's mainly just the shooting team that teaches that stuff. Now, like whenever it comes to rifle qualification, pistol qualification, that is still Marines at Marksmanship Training Company. Going through coach's course. Like the Marine Corps is not learning action shooting as a whole. It's still very much like 500, 300, 200 yard line type stuff. It's just more positional shooting off of barricades, utilizing the equipment that you would use in combat to engage targets at long distance, at a known distance. You're still hitting those fundamentals, but you have other assets available to engage those targets. And then whenever it comes to the CPP, it's I wouldn't call it fast engagements, because you have all the time in the world to engage targets from 25 yards down to 7 yards, but it's not bullseye style shooting,
I think
and it's
everybody
everybody's
here
still
knows
on the line.
CPP is worthless.
Uh, yes,
Okay, for everything, yeah, it was the jack of all trades and terrible at all trades as well.
yeah. I mean, you have all the time.
Now, here's the question I have for you, Matt, and I already asked you this before, so it's a little bit unfair. Why did the Marine Corps team stop going to AFSAM? The Armed Forces Skill at Arms Meet. It's a NATO combat shooting, for those who don't know, NATO combat shooting championships. You're wearing boots and utes. You have body armor on, helmet on, gas mask stages. You run and shoot. Almost everything is a silhouette target of a guy, a British figure 11 type of target.
So
If you want to shoot combat, I would imagine you're going to be dressed like you're in combat. And the problem I have with the combat team or the action team is they're dressed like they're competing in NASCAR.
right, and I mean that's what you're given whenever you go to these matches. But like to answer your question about AFSAM, that was before my time, and why we stopped. So I don't have the real answer behind that. Why we haven't continued going, I guarantee you, people on the team don't even know about it.
I'm sure.
And
as
a lot
far
of
as
it,
that goes, Keith? Though, when I was down there in Quantico last year for the Capital DC, what is it, the Washington DC Capital Region match, they're not wearing the NASCAR shit. They're dressed. They're combat Marines. They're doing combat stuff. The action team, that's different.
well, I mean, it is the action team that's teaching that stuff.
Yeah, they're teaching it, but the match that
Yeah.
I was at, they're actually dressed in gear.
Yep.
They're not wearing fancy
Yeah.
pants,
I mean, when
shirts
we
with
go
patches all over them.
whenever we go and compete at 3-gun matches, are we going to be dressed in full gear and put ourselves at a disadvantage against all the other competitors? Probably not.
Hope not.
Well, there
No.
are
No.
matches out there where you can wear your combat stuff and not be at a disadvantage. It just seems to me from the outside looking
That
in.
was AFSAM.
AFSAM. I competed in Mammoth Sniper competition earlier this year. We had to ruck like 45 miles throughout it, carrying all your equipment. You want to carry 3 tripods like a PRS shooter does, a bunch of heavy bags. That's great. You just got to carry them for 3 days. I didn't see any Marines there. Now I saw a bunch of former Marines there, a bunch of former Marine shooting team guys that were there. But I didn't see the active team there. It just, and the AMU doesn't go to that stuff.
The AMU does go to it.
They weren't there.
I don't know about this year, but I know guys like Nate Staskowitz. I know some of the guys from their rifle team. They've been there in the past.
I know they have, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Nate was there this year with another friend.
That is those styles. If you want to say we were focusing on combat shooting, there are matches out there that do exactly that.
But whenever it comes to just
look cool.
So I don't disagree, but at the same time, whenever you're talking about 3-gun, it's all about fast target acquisition, fast target engagements. running your gun. You are running your gun faster than what you normally would in any other situation, which gives you that confidence and that abilities. And so it instantly translates to combat style shooting. Yeah, you're not going to shoot a shotgun in combat. Well, maybe nowadays with the drone threat.
No, nobody does that. I was in Ukraine. No, there's nobody using shotguns on drones. That's a death sentence. That's stupid as shit to do that. I know people talk about it and stuff, but nobody's trying to shoot down an FPV with a shotgun. That's ridiculous. The best thing to do is duck in a hole. That's what I did. That's why I'm still here.
Oh man, that's a whole other conversation I could get into right now. Oh, that's funny.
You found your next podcast guest, Dave.
Well, I hope to have Keith on at some point, so we'll definitely be touching on that.
Anyway, I think as again, just to solidify a point I was trying to make. I think we all run into these traps of trying to like segregate marksmanship into these different little areas that we like, instead of looking at it as, I have for a long time tried to think of it as a general theory of pistol shooting. This is what works for everything. I don't have to change my quote unquote fundamentals or my outlook or the way that I train. A little bit about the way you train, whether I'm shooting in the Olympics, say rapid fire, free pistol, service pistol, USPSA, like a combat shooting match like AFSAM or something that is more tactical. If you organize the fundamentals correctly in your head, it's all the same thing. There is no difference. The only difference is the situation determines how fast this guy moves. Whether you're coming from a holster or you're coming from a lift or you're already aiming in, the situation determines how fast this guy moves.
When I'm teaching a bullseye class and I'm trying to express how important grip is, and I can't get somebody to understand the proper way to hold a pistol for bullseye, I tell them to put the gun in a holster, don't look at it, reach down, grasp the pistol, pull it out. That's the right grip. The same grip I shoot with bullseye is the same grip I grab the gun out and shoot two-handed with. It doesn't change. But
Well,
a lot
I
of
think
bullseye shooters, they
one of the
pick a
reasons
pistol up
for
and they're
that is
thinking, "Oh, I'm shooting
you got
one-handed. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do that." No bullshit.
you have
Action
so
guys,
much
you never see an
experience.
action guy pull the gun out of his holster and start changing his grip around.
You
Yeah,
hope
that's
not.
Grasp the
ridiculous.
pistol out of the thing, and that's the same grip I shoot bullseye with as the grip that I grasp coming out of the holster.
But that's because you've trained that bullseye grip really, really well. So if you have like a new shooter and they just go grab it from their holster, it's not going to slip into that groove like it does for us.
If
So,
they don't look
when
at
I'm
it
teaching,
and I would take a new shooter and just say, put it in the holster, put your hand down, grab it, wrap your fingers around. They're closer than they get trying to come up with a bullseye grip in their own mind. They might have to tweak it a little bit,
I mean,
but it's very similar.
to each his own. But the way that I explain it is for any type of pistol, whether it's a free pistol, air pistol, rapid-fire pistol, bullseye pistol, USPSA, limited, open, anything. Grab the pistol, act like you're going to do push-ups with it, or actually do push-ups with the muzzle against the deck. Wherever your hand goes is where it's supposed to be. That's just physics working for you.
Yeah.
What
And
I
that's the
tend to do
same for
with
everybody.
newer shooters is, one, I show them how it's supposed to. I get their grip how it's supposed to be in their hand. I show them exactly how much type of grip pressure is, and then I have them dry fire. Index their forearm on their pistol grip, and then come up, grab it, have them do that multiple times until they can achieve that the same way every single time, and then break it down to where, okay, now you got your hand on it, now come up and draw, and just have them do presentation drills. And then, now it's time to start pressing the trigger.
See, I'm a big. This probably comes back to my competitiveness, but I believe in the scientific method and free enterprise. So, since we have three different approaches, probably four if Zane was to get more aggressive and speak up. I would say, like, everyone gets 10 new shooters. We get 100 rounds a person or 500 rounds a person in 3 days, and have our shooters have a competition. That's free market. That's the scientific method. That's me being competitive. But like it's been said before, there's a bunch of ways to do to perform well.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of different ways to look at the same task, and I'm sure that when Brian and I are shooting bullseye, we're doing almost exactly, at least when we're shooting well, we're doing almost exactly the same thing. We might think about it a little bit differently. We might approach it differently, but the execution, as far as what our hand and our trigger fingers doing and what we're trying to do with our mind is probably really, really close.
And I've explained that to shooters coming up in classes. When I was shooting, I would watch Steve Ryder, Doc Young, Frank Goes, all the Army Reserve guys, because they were the ones that were kicking the Marine Corps' ass back then. But you watch these guys, and then you watch, Jimmy Henderson, you watch Keith, uh, Jim Leonardson, all these guys that were national champions at Bullseye. They're all doing the same thing. At the end of the day, they're machines. They might abort shots here and there, but other than that, that gun comes up within the same amount of time per shooter. That slow fire shot's going to break. That first shot's going to break when the target turns. And it's not reacting to the target turning, it's just breaking when the target turns. But they're all doing the same thing.
Now, Keith, I have a question for you. You said earlier, now we know that you went from the Marine Corps to the Army. Now, you said that the Marine Corps is still head and shoulders of everybody else in the terms of marksmanship ability. Why do you say that?
Both. I mean, are you asking why I say that, or?
Yes.
Well, I'm intimately, familiar with the Army doctrine because I still teach that as a contractor, and I work with Marines a lot. I know what the Marines do. I was the chief marksmanship instructor for Marine Corps Base Hawaii for several years as a civilian. I was an Army reservist at the time. The reason why I was Army reservist is because of what Brian said. They had the best team, and because they shot AFSAM, and the Marine Corps Reserve team did not shoot AFSAM. And combat shooting relevance was incredibly important to me. That's why I'm still so passionate about AFSAM. I really like that style of shooting, as far as in the military context. But the Marine Corps trains people more efficiently to be able to produce good shooters than any other organization of that. I mean, I'm sure there's some small organizations out there that might do a better job, but there's no organization close to the size of the Marine Corps that teaches marksmanship at the level that the Marine Corps does. And that's just why the Marine Corps is known worldwide as being marksmen.
And I think that's got a lot to do with it too. That whole, every Marine a rifleman concept and mentality. That you don't see that in the other services.
It's pretty simple. Like if you were Putin right now, around every single U.S. Army soldier, you have to draw a 300-meter circle because they qualify at 300 meters. Around every Marine, you have to draw a 500-meter circle. Now, are Marines really that effective at 500 meters? Yeah, I've been on a lot of ranges. I've taught a lot of Marines, probably close to 100,000 now. And they aren't really that effective. Nor is the ammunition and the rifle combination that effective at 500.
That's why we have machine guns. That's why we have mortars.
Well, yeah, mortars I'm all for.
F-35s.
Yes.
Listen, combat. And those are all being replaced by drones. But marksmanship has yet to be until the Tesla bot is armed with a Tommy gun. Marksmanship is still going to be important. That day might be coming.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, whenever you seek, close with, and destroy the enemy, and you hit the objective, it's all going to be marksmanship. It's all closing with and killing the enemy with your gun. So marksmanship, I don't think, is ever really going to go away.
I think in the context of the Marine Corps, if we were in charge, which none of us are, Zane is the closest one.
One day.
It's what's the most efficient way to train Marines to be as deadly as possible in combat, to be as effective as possible in combat. And shooting 1,000 rounds a day, I did it 6 days a week, for many years. That's not practical for the average soldier, average Marine, average sailor. If you can get an airman to shoot 5 rounds a year, that'd be a great thing. So you have to ask yourself, what's the most efficient way to teach? And the way we did it before wasn't the most efficient way, but it was more
a way
than it's more efficient than any other. It was the least bad way. I'll put it that way. To quote, like, what was it, Margaret Thatcher talking about democracy? It was the least bad political system.
Right.
The way we did it, and to that point, I am still a fan of bullseye for an instruction. I mean, there's a reason why at the operator training course at Delta or for Delta, they train on bullseye.
Yeah, but who goes trains Delta a lot of the times now? Who do they bring in? They bring a lot of the action guys and they bring a lot of the AMU in. Same with the Navy SEALs. A lot of those guys, they bring in the action guys because they can teach effectively in a fast, reactive way.
Well, and there's some more things to that. Like when I was at the AMU for a short period of time, and we did have those guys come. And I remember they came to I was on the international pistol team. They came to the service pistol team, and they didn't come there to learn how to shoot from a holster. They didn't come there to have to do up down drills. They didn't know how to do that. But AMU just finished coming back from Blackwater, so they were trying to teach them all the shit that they learned at Blackwater. And these guys from 5th Group were like, who do you think taught those guys? We didn't. We came here to figure out what you guys do best. What we need to be able to do is we want to learn how to shoot a very small target at 50 yards. You guys know how to do that, and they were just for some reason unwilling to share that knowledge. It was more of they were afraid to.
And I'm talking about currently. Like currently, you got a lot of the AMU guys just on the action shooting team going and teaching them now.
It's always been like that. They've been doing that for a long time. And before AMU does a lot of testing for CAG and the different groups. A lot of ammo testing. The whole 6.8 was started by a guy, Chris Murphy at AMU. So they've done a lot of stuff like that, and they've been doing that for years. There's a long history of that type of goings on or whatever.
I think we have a lot of history here tied to the Marine Corps, and we touched briefly on the emergence of drones and different technologies. Marksmanship has always been interesting to me in the Marine Corps because it sort of sits at a nexus between like the mystique and culture of the Marine Corps and the way that we train Marines. And I think that's why, oftentimes conversations about teams or training or things that we've done can be like emotional and contentious. It's because a lot of identity is sunk into that investment in tradition. And I was listening, Matt, to your podcast a few weeks ago, right? And you said, you had the quote that tradition is peer pressure from the dead. And I think there's another way to say it, which may mean the same thing, which is, tradition is also trust from the dead. A question I'd be curious with all the history that we have here is, if marksmanship, rifle and pistol marksmanship, has a less of a role to play in the next 20 years of warfare, and Marines are known by the mystique of every Marine a rifleman, and we're so closely linked to that identity, what is that going to do to the identity of the Marine Corps? And I say that knowing that over the last 8 months, the Marine Corps has started an attack drone team.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that,
which is heartening, right? It's a great thing to see. But what risk is there to the spiritual core of the Marine Corps in a future where potentially marksmanship is not as important as it once was? Where the mission of the Marine Corps Rifle Squad isn't locate, close with, and destroy the enemy. It's locate and destroy the enemy.
Well, when somebody sets off all the EMPs and destroys all the drones and all the computers to control the drones, we're going to call back the Marines and say, okay, get your little pistols, get your little AR-15s, M4s, whatever, and go kill bad guys. So we'll have a resurgence one day.
What do you think, Matt?
I was listening to a podcast probably last year or the year before about how, identity in a lot of these programs going away. Let's say, snipers are going away. People identify themselves, and hold themselves prideful as being a sniper. It went away. That's somebody's identity right there, somebody they trained very hard to do. So, with the possibility of marksmanship going away, it would be par for the course. Like, I don't know. I think the Marine Corps over the past 10 years has had an identity crisis, and they're trying, they've been trying to rudder steer which way are we going, and it's hurt us. So I don't ever see marksmanship necessarily going away, because like what Brian said, okay, EMP blast, drones go away, computer systems fried, we still need people on the ground to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, we're going to be throwing stones and beating each other with sticks again.
I'm good with the slingshot.
Slingshot. There he goes, marksmanship.
Yeah.
Slingshots and atlatls.
So I mean, part of this, I remember, when we started with the dots came online in bullseye, in '86 or something, when the first time AMU guy won the national championships. I think that guy ended up later on in prison, but
He actually did.
yeah. I remember there are a lot of people say, well, it's not iron sights, it's not marksmanship. Well, shooting a dot can be pretty damn hard sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
National record still. Hey, look at
Anderson's
Herschel
national
Anderson,
record is
2680, with irons.
Still with irons, yeah.
Yeah.
Because irons show you it's a different piece of the pie of marksmanship. It enhances certain things that a dot doesn't, and makes other things a little bit easier, like shooting in bad lighting conditions and things like that. For the rifle team, I had arguments with guys saying, the loop sling is without that, there's no fundamentals of marksmanship. Oh, you can't teach the RCO. So I was in the mix of the Marine gunners at the time, when the Marine Corps switched from teaching iron sights at entry level to RCO, the ACOG. And I was the only marksmanship guy, I think, that was pro ACOG only. And the reason why is, look, I got to teach this civilian how to be a Marine, and I have a week. I don't have time to teach both. And Taliban don't get killed with backup irons. They get killed with RCOs at the time. So my viewpoint was, and it turns out it won the day, it wasn't only mine, was that we teach RCOs. Because iron sights is not marksmanship. Loop slings are not marksmanship. Marksmanship is your ability to get a weapon system, a rifle or pistol in this case, to do what you want it to do, which is hit a target. Whatever that target might be, a piece of paper, a piece of rubber, or,
somebody's head.
Nose. Yeah. So I think that we just need to broaden our view. And so I do appreciate the Marine Corps, not the shooting teams, but Weapons Training Battalion taking on that drone team. I don't think there's a lot of foresight in it, because pretty soon the drones aren't going to be human controlled. Andrew's already working on that now. All the U.S. stuff is just you program in a bad guy's face or whatever, and it goes out, searches for him, and kills him. There's not going to be any drones. And as far as the EMP stuff, if you looked at any of the most recent stuff in Ukraine, they're all fiber optic controlled now.
Yeah, no. One of the craziest videos I ever saw was a drone going down a corridor, had that fiber optic cable. You had two Ukrainians waiting in ambush. They ran out, cut that cord, drone crashed.
Yeah, but that's not going to last very long.
No.
The technology for a completely autonomous drone already exists, and it's already used. America already has it. Like I said, Anduril and some other companies are already doing it. So the drone will set out, it'll do what it does, and there's no control at all. There's no GPS, and GPS denied environments, so on and so forth. And that video you saw of Ukraine was probably staged. Although they are really good at going into the fight with GoPros on their helmets.
Yes, they are.
They document a lot of stuff. It's just their intel departments take a really, really long time to approve the stuff to go back out. Otherwise, I could give you guys some cool footage.
Zane, you on your channel, your YouTube channel, the Bullseye channel, you've been contemplating different pistol marksmanship courses. Why is that?
Well, because I don't think CPP is a very good qualification course. I mean, is the short answer. And I felt that a lot of work went into developing the annual rifle qualification that's currently shot, which is sort of like an aggregate between moving from 500 in and then shooting a short bay portion at 25 yards. And I guess for me, it was an epiphany. Other people might disagree that the short bay portion of the annual rifle qualification made a pretty damn good pistol qualification with some slight modifications. So just to summarize, and Matt, keep me honest on this. It's been a while. The short bay portion of the annual rifle qualification it includes headshots, box drills, and failure to stop drills, all shot at 25 yards, and then a failure to stop drill moving from 25 to 15. And just thinking that if we are expected or we're anticipating that we're going to be required to close with the enemy or engage the enemy at 25 yards, the chances are we'll likely have to do that with a pistol as well as our service rifle. And so I thought it would make it challenging. Indeed, it was a challenging course of fire, and I ended up shooting with a variety of different modular handgun system competitors and seeing kind of which one shot the best. But it is a difficult qualification.
I would say move it from 25 to 15 and like you're where you need to be.
Yeah.
Like average pistol engagement area is what, around 12, 15 yards. I would say that'd probably be a good area to start.
Taliban at 50 yards one-handed.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a one-off case.
But if you can hit him at 50 yards one-handed,
I know it's.
But how often is that going to present itself?
That's that 500
if you
AR
can hit
shot.
him at 50, you can hit him anywhere.
Well, you do have to be careful with, if you look up combat stats of what the average engagement distances are, those are all qualified. For instance, in law enforcement, it's like 3 meters and in. That's because 95% of them are traffic stops.
Yeah.
So that skews the data significantly.
Well, I mean, if you look at Iraq, average engagement was 300 and in. And then whenever you were in the city, I mean, obviously house to house, like whatever distances those are, as you're moving through houses. When you're in Afghanistan, it's much wide open spaces, so you're moving out, you're moving further distances. So I mean, it really depends on the area you're fighting in, the area of operations. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think with pistol, we can confine it to 25 meters and in, because for service weapons and service ammo, the difference in accuracy between 25 and 50, accuracy potential is ridiculous. Like, you have an M9 or a Glock that might hold 10 ring at 25, and it won't hold 7 ring at 50. And it doesn't matter how good of a shooter you are; it's just that the gun is mechanically not capable of doing that. Mm-hmm. And much less most pistol shooters in the military, most people who shoot pistols in the military, which is a secondary weapon, or they're some officer or MP or something who's probably terrible with a pistol anyway. So 15, I would be comfortable with, that, because you can do all the marksmanship stuff you need to do at 15.
Yeah. I mean, if you
go to 25.
I mean, and how many people are carrying a pistol in combat?
Not very.
Not many.
Not many.
Zane.
Ironically,
it's that qual. I guess the weekend after I released the video, I took it to a local match and ran 25 just casual shooters, the type of people who would show up on a Thursday night to shoot with their friends, and the passing rate on that was 20%. With most of them sort of like achieving the the lowest marksman ranking. And
the way the Army and the Marine Corps typically come up with their marksmanship qualification levels is based on percentages.
Mm-hmm.
So like whatever sharpshooter is, it's whatever the percentage is. Both Army and Marine Corps historically have done that. It's not based on this is the standard we need to be effective in combat. Now, specialized units might do that, like MARSOC or Rangers or something like that. They have their own different things. I think when coming up with a different qualification course, there's two main things you have to worry about. One is what are the drills that most efficiently and effectively train somebody to get better at this skill set of shooting? And then the second thing is, what aspects of shooting do we need to be good at for this fight? And the challenge is to merge those two. So you can get both of them, out of them. I'm a big proponent of dry fire. Obviously, it's free. It's very unsexy. Nobody likes to do it. But I'm not saying you make everybody do a whole week of grass week, because I remember when I was in the Marine Corps and I was a good shooter, and grass week was a great time to relax and think about stuff, and not so. But the challenge with it is first to come up with the drills, and actually to educate yourself on which piece of the pie you want to be good at in marksmanship. These are the areas we want to be good at. There's some overlap. You need to learn how to line the sights, pull the trigger, no matter what type of shooting that you're going to do. So that's kind of that's the core piece of the pie that everyone's going to.
Everyone got caught. And something in
That
the
was very
background just went
profound.
away. I was listening to like Shrek or something, I think.
Oh, I heard.
Yeah, there was some background noise there.
Okay. Just like I thought I was connected to my wife's television in the house or something.
You're not having a stroke. We all heard it.
That could be too.
So Zane, when you only had 20% pass, did that make you rethink what you were doing?
Yeah, I probably need a better population if I have a better chance. No, I think there are different ways that you can make it quote unquote easier, and I think moving it to 15 is probably the one that makes the most sense.
And
You know,
it's not a matter of making it easier. It's just, again, average engagement is I think.
Yeah, and again, like to reiterate, there are some additional benefits outside of the actual training, and it is that if it is in the same bay using the same target as the short bay portion of the annual rifle qualification, you then give all the individuals who contribute to making that training happen, they can do it on the same range right after they're done shooting their short bay portion. And so it's redundant in terms of the targetry. And once you're set up for one, you're set up for both. And so you can get more shooters through faster, or potentially devote that time to additional training if you had the ammunition allotment.
Well, and that's what I wanted to go back. Like Matt, you said that you guys did a bunch of training down at 2nd Recon Battalion.
Yeah, we went down there a few. Like, I think at one point, like, I went on the first MTT down there, and then I think they went down like every quarter after that, something like that. And then I retired shortly after that first time.
So quite a few years before that, when I was at 2nd Recon Battalion, we were getting ready for a med float. And I can tell you that when I was at 3rd Recon for 2 years, we had zero, that I can remember, we had zero live fire drills. When I was at 2nd Recon Battalion for 3 years, we had zero live fire drills. When we were getting ready to go on a med float, we, meaning the members of our platoon, all pitched in money. We bought ammo at a local gun store. The lieutenant secured a range, and we did like breaking contact drills and E&E drills and different. We did a bunch of different stuff, but we had to buy the ammo ourselves because we couldn't even do that. We didn't even have an ammo
NGP'd nowadays.
Well, the good thing was at the time we had the lieutenants, he's like, yes, I'll secure the range. You guys buy the ammo and we're going to go do this.
Well, now they're required whenever they go on deployment to do like pass certain qualifications for the MU through EOTG, both day fire and night fire, and utilizing NVGs and stuff like that.
Half the day is night.
So it sounds like the Marine Corps is still doing some type of bullseye training with the annual qualification with rifle then?
I would say so. I mean, I wouldn't call it bullseye, but yeah, it's very similar. It's still known distance ranges, but you have barricades, you have prone, you're able to use your pack as to stabilize
Support.
yourself. Yeah, you're utilizing whatever you would have with you in combat in order to engage targets. And there's
But boot
certain
camp,
time requirements.
is it fundamental training?
Yeah.
Like the original KD, no distance, just fundamentals to teach them?
Yeah, it's I would still say it's very much fundamental. There's realistic time requirements behind it. you still have to apply those fundamentals, and you have kill zones and stuff like that. It's not a dog target. It's not, the traditional targets, but they have target zones for acceptable accuracy to engage and get their points.
Yeah, I think that probably the two biggest improvements over the traditional training was first the addition of full kit and realistic position. So you're shooting on your bag or you're using barricades. But the introduction of the USMC threat target, which required, per the course of fire, required shooters at 500 to shoot I guess, what do you call it, the home plate zone, instead of trying to hit that giant target confidence builder at 500. And so I think it's a positive development, and it's a difficult qualification. When Marines were making that transition.
But I think it was Keith that mentioned it earlier, that whole crawl, walk, run approach. Wouldn't boot camp be a little better served without gear just to master those fundamentals and then transition them into, okay, now you got to learn how to do this with the gear once they understand sight alignment, trigger control, and all that.
It should be. I mean, the problem with starting somebody out with gear. So we used to run this Mark 12 course in Hawaii, and I would have the guys. I made them shoot the whole thing with all their equipment on, and I had what was called Humvee commandos that would show up in day one with like this magazine stacks like 8 deep on their front. And by the end of the day, you see every single Marine started moving that stuff over, and not just so they could shoot a prone position, but the thing that happens is when you're being shot at and you're in the open, you get close to Mother Earth really, really quick. You don't want to have anything in front. And unfortunately, in GWAT, or fortunately, we haven't fought a near peer in a long, long time. And so a lot of our senior enlisted and officers out there have experience in one field of play that's not necessarily predictive of what's coming next. Anyway, back to the point. At the end of this course, I'd have them run it, and they were allowed to run slick it for this one competition if they wanted to. Almost every single Marine of their own accord chose to run with full kit on because they had their zeros with their full kit. Their kit was adjusted for their style of shooting. Everything was done right. Now, that was in a smaller, we think we had like 20 Marines or whatever in those classes. So it was in smaller groups. But the problem with starting out with kit with regular Marines or soldiers is they will move around their kit, however it happened to be set up, instead of adjusting their kit to their shooting position. So like Brian says, I'm a firm believer, learn how to shoot first, and then you adjust your equipment to support the Marine and his rifle. Instead of the other way around, where they're trying to shoot around some crazy kit with 8 magazines deep because all they've ever done is sit in a Humvee all the time or shoot standing up or kneeling. When you get mortared or have already called on you, you get low to the ground pretty damn quick.
And I understand the combat element of it. Those guys, they're shooting, they're doing this. They've got to be prepared to, for their lethality to go out there and kill bad guys. The support elements in the Marine Corps that come out to qualify annually. I mean, I know every Marine's a marksman or every Marine's a rifleman. They don't give a shit. And I think you're just losing a lot of marksmanship ability outside the combat elements of the Marine Corps.
I don't think you are
Dratman, Pogues, and
necessarily.
those people.
I don't think you are necessarily. Like, I mean, if that is the basic qualification and that is the standard, Marines are still going out and doing it. Yeah, they're not going out and qualifying, or I don't want to say qualifying. They're not going out and shooting as much as an infantry guy, but an infantry guy is going out and shooting additionally on top of all that. So, like, they have their annual rifle qualification that they have to do, but then I don't want to say they have other shooting requirements. So,
Right.
infantry guys and combat arms guys are always going out and continuously shooting, and these guys are going out and doing something that is still focusing on their fundamentals, but also preparing them in the event that they have to engage at distance utilizing the equipment that they're going to have.
Has anybody in the Marine Corps tracked like the non-combat elements of the Marine Corps to see their qualified that spread between marksman, sharpshooter, expert outside the combat arms?
I have no idea. I'm
That'd
sure
be
they
interesting to
have.
see. Has
Yeah,
that
no, I
gone
would too.
down?
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing that myself, but I don't
See,
know.
I'm always critical of those stats because I remember when the RCO came out, there was that one general who said this is the greatest advance in combat marksmanship since the M1 Grand. But I looked at the actual stats, and the actual stats showed that expert numbers, qualification scores as a whole went down with the introduction of the RCO.
Well, I would also venture to say is the Marine Corps, whenever they introduce a new piece of gear, it takes a while for Marines to understand learn how to use that piece of gear. Like
Well, we were
we're
teaching it
quick to
before.
field something, but we're not quick to teach it.
To your point, we were teaching loop slings still, and like just I know you're not supposed to be talking about rifle that much, but with an M16 or M4, and you get in a loop sling or you touched a handguard, basically that front sight post moves with your hand, and it's measurable. With an RCO, it does not. In other words, your zero is retained to the receiver instead of where the barrel's pointed from whatever pressure that you put on it. We learned this when we shot AFSAM. But when I was in the Marine Corps teams, we tried to get MPMS to adopt meg rested prone. And they were of the opinion that meg rested prone somehow caused magazine feeding issues or some other things like that, or it's not part of the fundamentals. But
Well, I think that's I think that perfectly shows how slow the Marine is, how slow the Marine Corps is to change doctrine and change training standards.
The equipment was ahead of the doctrine, and it was probably a lot of the old teams guys' faults that we weren't able to evolve quick enough and change that doctrine from NRA legal positions to how do I teach this Marine to wrap himself around a rifle or a pistol in the most effective way possible to kill bad guys. That's all I care about. I don't care if it's illegal for this competition or that competition. I'm a big fan of competition for breeding excellence and learning how to do things the right way, or figuring out what the right way is. But yeah, the Marine Corps was held back a number of years because of that, and I don't know if they've recovered completely from how to teach positions properly. But we had all that stuff figured out back in '99 and 2000 at AFSAM on the Marine Corps shooting team. We knew how to shoot what we called a combat kneeling position, a combat sitting position, which was not an NRA legal one, not anything close. You just don't touch the handguard at all, and then your groups get really, really small. I don't know if they recover from that. Honestly, I don't know if they're allowed to shoot mag rested prone right now.
Yeah, you are.
Ridiculous to me if they aren't. But
Yeah,
It's encouraged.
it's encouraged.
yeah, that was a fight that I fought and lost for a number of years within the Marine Corps because of old teams guys that were involved in marksmanship that were just like, oh, that's not that's not part of the fundamentals of marksmanship. And fundamentals of marksmanship is only what it takes you to have that bullet hit the target.
Yeah, the breeds are also benefiting from the just inherent value of a free-floated barrel with the IAR.
Not everyone has an IAR though. Although I was on the email chain that's from the Commandant when the Commandant at the time was asking if everybody should have the IAR. But at $4,000 a pop and a crappy piston system, a solution to a non-existent problem that the HK had come up with, that's a whole other subject I could get into. But
Well, let's stay away from that.
yeah,
I think we all have opinions.
I like guns.
Keith, you said something earlier I want to go back to. I want to ask you a little bit more because you were saying that I don't remember exactly how you said it, but it's just like shoot. How did you phrase it? You were talking about USPSA, IDPA, bullseye, and the fundamentals and how it just applies to everything.
It's an all. I try to have a general theory of pistol shooting.
Okay.
And that's kind of my own cocky way. I'm copying from Einstein's general relativity, but that's beside the point. But anyway, just constructing, it's all a piece of the pie of what marksmanship is, right? And there's this piece of the pie that's IPSC and IDPA. And, well, the stuff in IDPA is a little bit different, but in IPSC, PSA, where footwork is a really big deal and efficiency of movement and stuff like that, which isn't necessarily shooting stuff. It's just part of the game stuff. But like in bullseye has stuff like that too. But the execution of shooting, if you can think about that the same amongst all disciplines, then you can switch from one to the other without losing any ground. And I'm happy to have said that I've demonstrated that. I've won free pistol nationals, rapid fire nationals, and the inter service pistol championships all in the same week. And there was also a combat 900 at that inter service that I would have won if it was part of the. I won that, but it wasn't part of the egg, or I would have, done even better. I have at inter service, for example, and Brian can attest to this, as the only other one here who's shot 300s in team matches. Shooting a 300 in team match is hard, right? Yeah, it's when you do that, it's a big deal. I've shot a couple at inter service with the 45, and it was between the individual match and the team match, and I'd go over shoot IPSC with the AMU's action team in between. Now the average bullseye, that's going to mess up your trigger control. But to me, it didn't, because it was just the same. There was nothing that changed between the way I pull a trigger for rapid fire pistol, the way I pull a trigger for free. So the difference between rapid fire pistol and free pistol, for example, is free pistol is you have a 10 ring about this big at 50 meters. Brian used to shoot it. It's the hardest pistol discipline that there is. I think
absolutely the hardest thing in the world.
Can agree on that. It's hard. 60 shots used to be in 2 hours, one-handed with iron sights. The triggers are unlimited. It's called free because it's free of regulation. So it's the ultimate libertarian type of shooting. Has to be a pistol, so they make sure it doesn't touch your wrist. Has to have a posted notch front and rear sight. And in 1979, they added the rule that the trigger has to be actuated by pressure from a finger in the firing hand, because the Russians were going like this with their left hand to get to shoot. So they had to add that in. So now there's 3 rules, right? Has to be a 22, so I guess it's 4 rules. But other than that, the trigger can go as light as you want. So my free pistol, its trigger is, I think, 10 grams. Not 10 ounces, 10 grams. So if you pick up a thick staple, that weighs about 10 grams. Or not even a thick staple, like a medium-sized staple weighs about 10 grams. If you shoot a 9mm next to a free pistol, it'll go off from the concussion. They're very, very...
See, I shot a heavy free pistol trigger.
What was it, like 100 grams?
As far as I could get that tallest trigger to go, that little spring in there was like, I was about to snap.
They don't go very much higher than like 100. Now, when I shot it, if I could go back and do it over again, I probably would have shot like 40 or 50 grams.
I think mine was right around 50, 55.
Yeah, that's good for free pistol. Now, rapid fire pistol, on the other hand, you have 5 separate targets. It used to be silhouette shaped. You have to shoot a 22 long rifle with a 40 grain bullet going 250 meters per second or faster. That's fit inside of a box. There's all these different regulations, maximum sight radius. Trigger has to be 2.2 pounds or 1,000 grams or more, blah, 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 all this extra stuff. But you're shooting a different target every half of a second in the 4-second series. And the scoring rings are roughly the same size as what they are in bullseye. And then if you go fast forward to service pistol, you have a 4-pound trigger with a 1911. And then you go to USPSA, where you can have it, you really don't want to have a trigger lighter than 1 pound in US, probably about 1.5 pounds, maybe 2 pounds.
1.5 pounds, 2 pounds.
Yeah, depending on the person. Lighter than that. I like it a little bit heavier than that when I shoot USP, if there's hard shots, because I'm more accurate with a heavier trigger. I'm not as accurate with a lighter trigger, especially with a 1911. Anyway, but all of these things, at least the way I have it organized in my head, I'm doing everything exactly the same way. Whether I'm shooting a dot or I'm shooting with iron sights, or it's all exactly the same. And the advantage that gives me is it allows me to switch from discipline to discipline without a lot of training specific to that discipline, and without being very much behind. Like if you really analyze how a bullseye shooter shoots a timed rapid fire series or string of fire, it is the same way as USPSA shooters shoot. There's not that much difference. How do you shoot faster? You shoot faster by hesitating less. I think we'd all agree upon that, right? And you don't reset the trigger more than you have to. When the trigger's moving back, it resets instantaneously, and you're back on the trigger before your sights are aligned, before the pistol's back on target. Otherwise, I've heard people say, you bullseye shooters can't pull the trigger unless your sights are perfectly aligned. And I'm like, well, you've never shot rapid fire then.
Yeah, you're doing it wrong.
Like my sights are hardly ever aligned when I'm shooting hardball, right?
Yep.
But at the end of the day, if you were to distill it down to if we were to come up with real fundamentals, they are the same for everybody.
Oh yeah, fundamentals are fundamentals. It's just how fast you apply them in one sport versus another.
It's just the situation determines how fast this guy moves. Everything else is the same.
Yeah, but one thing, I'll bring something in, and it's kind of this Marine Corps definition of lethality, spirit model of lethality. You have 5 pillars of combat performance: speed, precision, executive control, adaptability, and risk exposure. And it's like, unlike traditional marksmanship models, spear reflects the integration of physiological, psychological, and technical components that influence lethality in complex, high stress environments. I would yes, given the situation with the disciplines you have, they are high stress environments, but in action shooting, you're constantly having to move around, look at the situation, think about what you're going to do, and have that executive control to combat, the targets that you're engaging, much like in a combat environment.
Well, real quick, things like that, like the 5 pillars and stuff like that, that's just some Marine Corps major or lieutenant colonel that wanted to exploit his master's thesis. Because nobody in combat thinks about that shit. I'm not saying it's not important.
How dare you talk bad about my thesis?
Lieutenant colonels somewhere down the future will go to a different school, have a different thesis, and will come up with, the 3-legged, whatever, thing is. But to everyone here's point, I think, if you can not really master, if you can just get good at the fundamentals, where you can do them with your eyes closed, so to speak, right? Then all the other stuff gets easier. So it gives you that executive control, or I can move and do this because now I'm not thinking about adjusting my grip. I move from this target position to that target position. I'm gonna have a soft start. I'm gonna glide in, which is ironically just like a lift in international rapid fire. But I have a soft start. I'm gonna glide in, and as I'm coming in, I'm gonna start shooting. Well, I'm not thinking about my grip. I already had that figured out because I've worked on the fundamentals before. So I'm not thinking about where my feet. I might think about where I'm going to step this foot and that foot, but I'm not going to put that much of my spotlight of focus on it because I've already worked it over a whole bunch of times. It's like driving a standard transmission car. When you first start out, it's hard to shift gears and work the clutch and worry about a blinker and you're all confused. Then after a while, years maybe for some people, you're double clutching and you're starting out in second gear uphill, and it gets a lot easier once you master the fundamentals. So I think what all of us here agree on is, whatever those fundamentals are, master those fundamentals first, and then all the other things get easier. That's why it's the crawl, walk, run, thing. You got to learn how to do a right face before you can do a column of files. And I say that because
what's a column of files?
I got fired at squad leader like 5 different times that I couldn't do column of files. So that's still a soft spot. But anyway, the point is, if you get good at this stuff, you figure out what trigger control is. Which means 2 things: how slow can I pull this trigger? How fast can I pull it before I start to lose control? And then you worry about, you get your grip down, and you get you build a position. Okay, here's an ideal position, whether it's 2-handed or 1-handed. But here's how I can do other things. But you start out with a common starting ground first. I think is probably the most efficient way, and then you build from there. And then once you have that groundwork, you can expand out, and you have that centerpiece of the pie built of these quote unquote fundamentals of marksmanship, and then you can expand out and start getting better and better at whatever areas that you want to get really good at.
Yeah. So one of the things that you have this podcast go out there, and you're going to have a lot of shooters listen to it. Hopefully, some Marines. And I feel like I've spent most of the time defending the changes that the Marine Corps has had in marksmanship. So I want to advocate for bullseye here for a moment, and I want to do it in the context of comparing a USPSA match to a similar bullseye match. And so this was a conversation that Dave and I had on a previous version of this podcast. And so earlier, it was either last year or earlier this year, shot the Area 5 Championship and then shot the Ohio Outdoor Championship, was a bullseye match. and I compared the stats between those two matches, and there were some striking similarities in terms of the shooter's experience and some striking differences. And so let me just draw out a couple of those. At the USPSA match I went to, it was a 2-day match, or I'm sorry, it was a 1-day match, and there were 338 shooters. The bullseye match, there were 27 shooters, and they represented not equivalent geographic sizes, but one was a state and one was an area for USPSA. I spent exactly the same amount of time on the deck at the same shooting location, which was the Cardinal Shooting Center, and I shot almost exactly the same amount of ammo. But where I want to enter into this conversation, because you're talking about the value and adding to the fundamentals, there was a vast difference from the shooter's experience in terms of time spent shooting. So the time spent shooting at a bullseye match and any other sort of like equivalent traditional match is considerable. Of my time, neither are a majority, but of my time shooting bullseye, 139 minutes were spent engaged in the act of shooting, albeit slowly, right? My total time spent shooting in a USPSA match, and this was a match I was there for 10 hours, was 458 seconds, which represented 1.2% of the time that I was out shooting a match. And I wonder, from my perspective, I was pretty taken aback by that, because training for USPSA, there's such tremendous value for it, but the actual match that you're shooting, nearly all of your time is spent not shooting. Like 98% of the time that you're shooting is spent not shooting. So bullseye, at least from my perspective, can serve to refine or enhance those fundamentals for those who choose to dabble in it or shoot it, because you're shooting quite a long time, and you're shooting quite a lot, though very differently from practical shooting. But I'd be curious what the bullseye sort of like gentlemen here think, and then Matt, I'd be curious what your feelings are on it.
Well, I wait 4 years to shoot for 36 seconds, so who am I?
Yeah, you might not be the right person to answer that question.
I'm probably the wrong person.
Matt, what do you think?
I've shot USPSA, NRA action, IPSC, IDP. I've shot a little bit of all of it. And the only thing with the action sports is there's so much downtime. It's painful. It just was. You're walking back and forth, scoring targets, repairing targets, and then you, like you said, you get to shoot for 12, 17 seconds.
I mean, I think it also, you're talking specifically USPSA, in 3-gun, you're shooting significantly longer. Granted, yeah, there is a lot of downtime,
Right.
but because you have so many people in each squad, like it's how you get people through. You have, there's significantly a lot more people. In the gauntlet matches, we have 5-minute par times. Are you shooting all 5 minutes? Yeah, the less experienced shooters maybe. But the good shooters who are physically capable and able to hit targets, no matter what type of targets. I think that's also another thing, the type of targets that you're having to engage, whether it's spinner targets, and some people might think of those as gimmicky targets, but you're having to learn how to shoot different style of targets, whether it's a Texas Star or a spinner or a swinger. Or engage targets at varying distances, and having to switch between rifle and pistol and then back again, and manipulate your gun, and having to clear out jams and stoppages on your own. You're constantly having to think about what you do in a short amount of time, and it takes a long time to get really good at all of that.
I'd be all about 3-gun if you just got rid of the shotgun.
Well, then that's 2-gun.
I like 2-gun.
And don't get me wrong, like I have ventured away from 3-gun. I am specifically only doing 2-gun now, just because that's what I'm interested in nowadays.
It's popular in America. Here's my conspiracy.
No, 3-gun is dying in America now.
Well, I'll give you a reason for that too. But it was popular in America because it had industry support, because you had to buy 3 different guns that were all made in America, where if you shoot an international, none of the guns are made in America.
My shotgun's not made in America. My shotgun was made in Russia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have a KL-12.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Anyway, It had a lot of industry support. The problem with the industry support is the prize table.
It dries up.
You had
these competitions who were asking, gimme, and then there was no give back.
Well, I worked in the industry. See, if my company, donates, say I work for JP, I did not work for JP Enterprises, but I like JP Enterprises. They're a big supporter of the shooting sports. He gives out a whole bunch of stuff at whatever, match or whatever, with the initial expectations that, well, people will. I mean, I don't think John Paul had actually thought this way, but I'm picking on him. That people are going to win. They're going to win my product, and they're going to use it. And no, what actually happens is
it gets sold.
Their product, they sell it for half price, so it hurts their sales on their regular product line. And then they realize, instead of helping me out, I'm getting a little bit of a tax advantage for giving away stuff. But other than that, this isn't helping me out that much at all as far as a business. So I think I'm not a fan of prize tables. I don't like how they do it at Perry now. I've always been a fan, because I grew up in the Marine Corps marksmanship community, that you're doing it for the badge, or you're doing it because you want to win, and nothing else, whether it's you win a gun or anything else, that doesn't really mean a whole lot. I've never been a mercenary as far as shooting is concerned, at least. But I think that's what hurt 3-gun. 2-gun stuff I like a lot, because I happen to be good at both. But a lot of people want to be good at just rifle or pistol, and I can respect that too. But I think what we're all doing, I think, is complaining about the different types of competitions that are out there. So we should get off our ass and make a better one. But that's a lot of work to come up with a better type of competitive shooting that addresses these requirements that we might have.
Isn't that what they tried to do with the World Shoot?
That was terrible. Well, I have a number.
I mean, it's evolved since the original. I know the original one was a horrible idea.
Are you talking about the NRA World Shooting Championship?
They called it the World Championships, and it happened to be the same time as the actual World Championships, which happens once every 4 years. They had 100-something countries that were participating.
That sounds like the
countries. That actually was difficult, and you also want to. I mean, this is a different issue, but it's linked. I remember I've talked to gunners before and said, "Oh, you competitive shooters, just give them rack grade guns and rack grade ammo, and then see how good you are."
And they're still good.
We did that. It's division matches, how that used to be. The problem with that idea is it introduces a big variable, because the guns. I've seen national champions of the rifle that didn't medal at division matches. They had a bad lot of ammo at Eastern Division one year. And, the ammo wouldn't. They were having ammo that would not hit the 6x6 at 300. And some Lance Corporal won Eastern Division matches. This is back in the day, Matt, before you were around, back when they were really hard.
Still hard, just different style.
Different way. Yeah, it was a different style. I'd be good. I'm good at that style too.
Not as good.
But my point is, when you have, the idea is that the more regulation you have, it doesn't make it more fair. It makes it more lucky. And again, that's why I'm a fan of free pistol. Least amount of regulation. Like, here's your sandbox, build whatever type of pistol you want, or whatever the case may be. But less regulation is good. You can have the differences between open and limited, or carry optics, which is a big thing nowadays. Bullseye shooters have been shooting carry optics since the 80s. Just throwing that out there. Of course, we had big ass aim point 1000s back in the day, but
one of the things. And it's not a knock on Bullseye. Like, the rules are rules. But one of the things that practical shooting does, and I've already said this, is it teaches you how to manipulate and clear out your weapon. You don't have to raise your hand waiting for somebody. You're on the clock. If you have a stoppage, if you have a jam, you have to figure it out on your own. And it teaches you and forces you to do it in a fast manner.
Well, two things to that. One is, if your pistol's malfunctioning on you, that's your fault. I mean, because
it is. But in Bullseye, you raise your hand, somebody has to come by, and they have to look at it.
When the Marine Corps team switched to jacketed hollow points back in '97, my pistol did not like them. I was having double alibis left and right. I got really good about clearing malfunctions in the middle of a rapid fire series and still shooting 100.
Yeah, but whenever you're on a rifle range, like back whenever we had the original Bullseye course of fire for qualification, the basic rifle qualification, if you had a stoppage, you had to wait for a coach to come over
No, that changed after the first Gulf War because they had Marines in combat that would stop and raise their hands. You had to do immediate
We still had to do that whenever I came in.
Well, then
Yeah,
they
same
changed
here.
it because when I was working on the range, both as a corporal and then later on as the guy in charge, you had to do tap rack bang or you didn't get the alibi. You did tap rack bang first if you
You
couldn't
had
do
to
it, then
attempt
you'd
to
raise your
clear
hand.
it.
Yeah. But you still had to have somebody come over and verify, whereas in practical shooting, nobody's coming.
The problem is if you're shooting a competition or a qualification where your rank is on the line, let's say, because you want to get your promotion points, right? And the rifle or pistol malfunctions of no fault of your own, because it was a bad round or you broke a lug on your bolt or something, your promotion should not be penalized because the Marine Corps gave you a bad gun or a bad round.
Yeah, but what did we, and I understand exactly what you're saying, but what did it teach Marines to do? When something happened, when something went wrong, Marines would just sit on the line, raise their hand, and say, "Hey, I have this going on."
That didn't happen until the range officers went away. The gunners must have re-implemented that. But the whole
No, that happened.
that
In my first 10 years in the Marine Corps, that was going on.
No, it shouldn't have been because doctrine was you had to do immediate action, tap rack bang, or you would not get the alibi.
Yeah. I mean, I'm saying like that stuff did happen, but like you still had to wait for somebody to like verify and and come and check and then give the clear saying, "Hey, he's good."
Well, that if you think about it, that is unfortunately the only way you can do it in a situation like that. Otherwise, you're making a Marine suffer for his promotion or her promotion based on something that was out of their control.
I think part of that issue too was that you were only given the exact amount of ammunition you needed to shoot the courses of fire. So you needed more ammo. So you had like, hey, I'm having a problem. I got issues. I need more ammo. Come to look at it. So there were a bunch of issues there.
Yeah, and if it was me, they wouldn't be tap rack bang. It'd be change magazines. If you have a malfunction, change magazines.
Yeah.
Because there's been reports of Marines and soldiers in combat, a lot of them in combat, that
Who were just trying to clear it out rather than just switch it out.
So if you change magazines, and also it solves most of the malfunctions you can have with either an M9 or an M17 or an M4. But anyway, that's a whole different subject. We're getting too much off on doctrine, I think. None of us here control doctrine, except for Zane might have some influence.
No, he doesn't.
No, I do not. At least not in marksmanship doctrine.
Maybe someday. Working that master's
Yeah.
thesis.
But it also directed like some of this stuff we're talking about, though, the different types of shooting, whether it's practical or we'll just say dynamic shooting or static and bullseye, that type of thing. So it all affects it. Matt, when you were in, because I know Zane is still in, but you were the last one to retire of the group here. Did you see any improvement per se? What's that, Keith?
I said, "Who's the boot now?"
You're the boot being the on the podcast. I'm the boot in the group because I'm the. Well, Zane, how old are you?
45.
Oh, you're older than me. I'm the baby.
Child. Boot to life.
But did you see any improvement in the marksmanship ability just by changing the style of shooting?
Yeah, I saw a lot more confidence. Now, like to Brian's point earlier, sometimes it was fast and loose whenever we first started. It took a lot of direct control in the types of drills that we had the Marines to perform to get everybody, instead of just shooting as fast as they can and missing the target half the time, like we had to control the drills that we taught them in order to actually have them engage properly. But yes, I saw confidence boosted, ability raised, and just overall increase in marksmanship ability.
I would say on the part
Fundamental
of the
marksmanship ability, combat marksmanship ability. Not to say that there's two different things, but precision wise.
See, that's where I think like there's a thing called acceptable accuracy. Like acceptable accuracy is being able to engage target and either kill it or put it down. you can't have this in combat. You can't have this unrealistic size target. You're not going to have that small
But I mean, you may
target.
have an unrealistic size target that's the threat that you've got to take out.
Mm-hmm. But when we're talking about like, I can hear myself talking, which is why I'm like all over the place right now.
Mine comes and goes and doesn't.
Yeah. I think there's acceptable levels of acceptable accuracy, which is a lot of what we do in practical shooting. You need to be able to engage the targets that are presented to itself, which a lot of competitions have their standards in what you have to engage. Whether it's 2, 3 MOA targets at specific zones or specific distances. Um, I think that's perfectly acceptable. You don't have to have that half-inch target or inch and a half target at 50 yards and at 25 yards. You're not going to be taking slow, precise shots all the time. Yes, snipers, precision marksmen, they're going to be doing more of the PRS type skills, but it's the grunt on the ground or is the combat elements. Most of those guys are going to be shooting targets that are within acceptable levels of accuracy.
Now, Keith, I wanted to go back because one of the things I wanted to ask you is you said you shot bullseye, USPSA, and then back to bullseye, like all in the same weekend. Did you have you ever had the issue because the stuff that I did in the military when I tried and high power shooting when I first started shooting USPSA, it was like I was aiming for the A in the center of the A zone, and I it took me a while to break myself of that habit. Did you ever have that issue?
I mean, I'm sure I did, but we also shot AFSAM where there were some really fast stages at AFSAM where you had to do, like coming from a tactical carry, you had to shoot 3 different targets, 2 shots each in under 4 seconds.
What's a tactical carry?
At 15 yards. Yeah, so like with there it was your forearms parallel with the deck and your elbows at your side, but you could also be at the 45 degree. You used to call it tactical carry in the Marine Corps.
I'm just so everybody knows.
Middle school, child. But yeah, so that taught us because you could be slow and methodical, but if you're late, that's a misses. So you had to shoot, and in shooting bullseye, shooting a 230 grain hardball, which we no longer shoot, unfortunately. Shooting the 10-second rapid fire stage, that's rough. You got to learn. And if you can take slow, methodical shots and save 4 rounds. That's not going to help you out very much. So you learn how to shoot with whatever the time stage was, and then we would screw around to see, well, how fast can we shoot? For instance, like when I shoot rapid fire, there was times where Emil and I would shoot a 3-second series. We shoot 5 separate targets starting with your arm at a 45 degree angle in 3 seconds. That's really hard. 4 seconds is hard enough, but 3 is really hard. And you would just to push what you can do. When you go to USPSA match, well, now I pretty much have an idea that I can get this fast before my groups start opening up bigger than the plate. I don't have a really good idea because I don't do it all the time, but I have a pretty good idea. I can get to a plate pretty quick. And I can, and my trigger finger's really fast, so I could double tap. If it's close, I can get split times that are really, really quick. So I haven't, not in a long time, 25 years or more, have I had a problem with that type of switch.
Brian, what about you? I know you've shot a little bit, not much, not your favorite, but
I've shot a little bit. I've never had any issues transitioning from bullseye to any of the USPSA. I mean, I've even shot some Glock matches down here. The only thing that ever screwed me up was like shooting shotgun sporting clays.
Yeah.
But crossing over was never a big deal for me. Like Keith said, AFSAM and those matches that we shot, it was never a big deal for us.
well, gentlemen, we've been talking for almost 2 hours now. I don't mean to take up your whole evening. Is there anything that anybody would like to say before we bring this thing to a close?
Shoot as much as you can. Shoot the different disciplines and with an open mind and think about how is this, what are the good things I can learn from this style of shooting?
And cross train.
Yeah, I'd say shoot what makes you happy. Shoot what the more shooting you do, whatever discipline you shoot, is going to just make you better because your hand is behind the gun.
Yeah, so just let your interests sort of be your guide. Like we're talking about people investing their own time, and you don't want to invest your own time in things that you find distasteful, right? You're going to get better at the things that you enjoy. Too few Americans get out and shoot competitions as it is, right? So find what you like and have fun. And then, as Keith would also say, work your follow through.
Yeah. The more miserable you are, if you're shooting something you don't enjoy, you're just never going to get better.
Well, that's unfortunate because I haven't really liked most shooting in a long time.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate everybody coming on and talking about this. Even though we may have wandered a little bit, I still think it was a very good conversation.
You got a screen of 5 Marines. Of course, we're going to wander.
There was no beer involved. Just imagine if we had some beer. I should have done this a couple of days ago on the birthday.
I had a couple old fashions while we were talking.
There you go. Again, thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
Later.